Let's do it. He's the dean of beat reporters for the Detroit Lions. The great Mike O'Hara joins us now live, DetroitLions.com. How you doing, Mike?
I don't know about that great stuff.
Oh, we think you're great.
Come on, look.
Don't be so humble. Don't be so humble.
Listen, if I had 16 touchdown catches in a season in 2007, wearing number 17, hoping to go for one more, I consider that great.
I appreciate you, Big Mike. I appreciate you.
Hey, Mike, before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, I just want to ask you, just based on all your experience, because we sit here and talk about this Lions organization a lot, from owner to president to general manager, advisor, head coach. Is this as good of an organizational standard, culture building that you have ever been in your time with the Lions?
Well, it's good on its own. I don't know if it needs to be measured against anybody else, but I will say this, and I think we've forgotten this, that from 1989 when they drafted Barry Sanders to basically the 2000 season when they were 9-7 and didn't make the playoffs, there was a span in there from 91 to 99 where they made the playoffs. I think it was 6 times, and 5 times, and won a couple of division titles and beat the Cowboys in a playoff game, and really had some really outstanding, players, Pro Bowl players. Herman Moore and Barry and Chris Spielman, and then go down and down the list. So that was a pretty well put together crew there, I think, right from the top on down. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is, what Dan Campbell and his staff and Brad Holmes, the general manager, and his staff, what they inherited was really. It was the closest thing to being an expansion franchise as you can get without really being one. And what they've done in 24 months, whatever it is, really is remarkable. And the thing about it is, I think this is one of those seasons when, if you were a fan or played for the Lions or a member of that staff, whatever role you played, I think you walked away from a 9-8 season and thought to yourself, that was a pretty good year. We've got more to come. And I think it was, and I think it is.
Mike, I want to piggyback off Ryan and ask you a 2-part question. Question 1, a decision today was made. Ben Johnson decided that he's not entertaining anybody else. He's staying with the Detroit Lions. Was that decision made in part because of how well the organization is being run right now and that team coached by Dan Campbell? And 2, how big is it that Ben Johnson is coming back next year to be the OC of this team?
Well, never underestimate the value of what it's like to work for people you like to work for and think they're headed in the right direction. And I think that's true in any business, but it's especially true when you're measured, largely your success and your well-being and all that is measured in wins and losses, and what you see, on the horizon coming forward for you. And so I think a lot of that, the Lions have not announced that, by the way. Look, we know what the sources, Pelissero and others have reported, and I'm taking it as a fact that it's true, but to be confirmed at a later date. But I just think that if you're a young coach and you see all of that, and you have a chance to, you're already being, getting entertaining job offers, you can look down. If you have some confidence in yourself and you like where you are and you like what's going on, you can see that you might be in a better spot in another year or another 2 years and really get the job, the position, and everything else that you really want to start out in a new direction, with really some strong support behind you. So, look, I don't speak for Ben Johnson. I'm just telling you what I've seen with other guys who changed jobs, and it worked for some, it didn't work for others, and some broke even. But you really, no matter what it is, if you have options, you want to put yourself in the best position possible. So when you do take a job, it's not. We used to refer to some of the jobs, like in the Big Ten, like Indiana football, as a death job. In other words, you go in and you're done. That's it.
Very true.
Well, I don't think Ben Johnson or any other assistant coach, coordinator wants to be in that position. And just my opinion, not that he talked to him about it. This is just me, based on my experience of watching this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of that in his decision. But also the other part of it is he obviously likes working there with the players and the rest of the staff.
Mo, we were talking about Jared Goff. Lions PR put out some stats earlier, and they're you got to look at him twice. Like, wow, this guy really did this, top 10 in this, top 5 in this, leader in this. How important was it for Ben Johnson to come back for Jared Goff himself? Or is it Mark Brunell, or is it a combination of both?
Well, I think everything's a combination of both, but I think a lot of it goes to Jared Goff himself. Look, he had a really tough out there in Green Bay. I'm sorry, not Green Bay, in Los Angeles. In fact, I asked him in the closeout interview the day after the season ended, I asked him, how important was it to be in a place where you felt appreciated? And he just stopped and waited. You could tell it means something to him, and he said it means a lot to him, especially when it wasn't quite the other. It was quite the opposite, the last place he was at. And so I think that plays a role, Tommy. I really do. I think Jared Goff, I think, was probably about as good as you can be in his role the second 8, 9, 10, 11 games of the season. There were a couple of turnovers earlier in the season that cost him. But once they got some things nailed down, that was really a productive offense. And look, who's the man running the show? It's the quarterback.
Right. Hey, Mo, I brought up the 90s teams, as you did. You had
Yes.
Eric Kramer. Eric Kramer won some great games with his team. Scott Mitchell had a couple of great seasons here, but neither one of them really was like that upper echelon quarterback. That's how I compared Jared Goff to. Am I in the right ballpark with that?
I think he's better than Eric Kramer and Scott Mitchell. I mean, I don't think there's any comparison whatsoever.
Okay, then I'm wrong.
No, not necessarily. It depends on how you rate them. I would put right at this moment in his career, I would put Jared Goff in the second tier of quarterbacks, and you can rate them anywhere from, depending how you rate your quarterbacks, and a lot of it is based these days on on guys who can run, who can use their legs. That's certainly not his game.
Right.
But I think you put him anywhere from 5 or 6 to 10 or 11, somewhere in that. And on a given day, he might be a little bit better. But I certainly think he's shown one thing, and that is he's a quarterback that you can win games with. He did that when he was with the Los Angeles Rams, and he's doing that now with that 8-2 finish with the Lions, that he can do it here in Detroit.
Talking to DetroitLions.com writer and Detroit Freak legend Michael Herr. I have one question for you. One last question for you, I promise. Of course you're a legend. We've been talking about you in some capacity since I was 12 years old, talking to my dad about sports, which I knew nothing, and I still know nothing about sports. Detroit Lions, they've shown a lot towards the end of the season on both sides of the ball, but they still have the 6th pick in the draft. With the 6th pick in the draft, you're on the clock. Who are you drafting and why?
Well, thank God I'm on the clock, because I have till the end of April.
Yeah, this is true.
A long time.
This clock's a little faster.
At least send me a pizza to eat for the next 4 months. Look, I think defense, unless you see something else that's too good to pass up. If they could just go in there and pick anybody from the top 6, to me it would be that defensive tackle from
Jalen Carter, Georgia.
Yeah, really. I just like what he brings. I've often thought this, and I've asked this of quarterbacks. What the toughest pass rush to face, and it's a guy who's right in your grill, because you can't get away.
Yeah.
You can, for a guy, a pass rush from the outside. If the offensive line's doing its job, and the offensive line here in Detroit is pretty doggone good, if they're doing your job, you just step up and he whizzes by, and you throw the ball and go back to the huddle. And so I think the Lions need something a little bit stronger in the middle of their front four.
Mike, I got two more for you
Same.
real quick. Do you anticipate Brad Holmes making a big free agent splash? They do have some money, but can Lions fans, and I'm not going to ask a name, but do you think they're going to be wowed by some big name free agent here, or do you believe it'll be more methodical?
I don't know about wowed. I really don't. I would say no. I have no inside information on this. Only my own insight. I don't think that they're going to make a big push, but I don't think they're going to go out and draft 2 or 3 veterans who are on their last year or two in the league. I think they want young players, young legs who can develop. And look at DJ Chark. Look what he did for him when he got healthy at the end of the season. I think players like that who are good, strong contributors. But look, Jamal Williams. Look what he did in 2 years here with the Lions. He had a nice year, last year, and then in 2022 at 1,000+ yards and 17 touchdowns. So I think it might be more of that. But if they get a chance to get a developing young playmaker, I think they would go for it.
Mike, I want to ask you about Sheila Ford Hamp. I feel like so many times, so many people will tell you, if you're a lifelong Lions fan, you can't win until the Ford family sells. You can't win until the Ford family sells. I think if you paraded Sheila out, she'd get a standing ovation right now. I think people love her. What is the sense you get from Sheila Hamp right now, and just her presence around the building, her presence in the organization, and what she's brought to this team?
I think she really kind of followed her mother's tracks on that one. I really do. Mrs. Ford was really active in the with that franchise right from the day she took over. But Sheila in particular, look, I think for whatever reason she did it, that mini press conference she had during practice around week 6 or 7, whatever it was, when she said that she believed in the people they had, she thought they were going the right way, and she thought they were going to get it done. And she also said, I'm not just talking to the media, I'm talking to the fans. I thought that was if not a stroke of genius, it was something very close to that. And I think that gives you an insight into how she does things, how she runs. She remains in the background. That's where she wants to be, but she also has an office right there, where Brad and Dan and those guys and Chris Spielman are working too, because she wants to know what's going. She doesn't want to have to wait and call them the next day to find out what's going. She wants to know right now.
Mo, I got one last one for you. As far as the rookies go on this team, the way they played, that was a hell of a draft that Brad Holmes put together. And who impressed you the most? Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Kirby Joseph, Malcolm Rodriguez. You can go on and on. I mean, what a great draft this was. Ryan brought up that he thinks it's the best draft since
88.
I
think it's the best Lions draft since 88.
What's your take on this class that came in, and who were you impressed with the most this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, they had 8 draft picks, 6 on defense, 2 on offense. I'll say it's an 8-way tie for first.
Yeah.
Because they got a little bit of something from everybody in that draft. They really did. And look, they had a guy drafted in the 6th round.
Yep.
And he had 8 sacks. And he had a lot of other plays too, fumble recoveries, quarterback hits, stuff like that. So I thought not only did they get it from that draft, but also the 2021 draft. You saw development from those players too. So I think Brad Holmes drafted maybe 15 or 16 players in his first 2 years.
Wow.
And there weren't many swing and misses, I'll tell you that.
Yep.
Just as a point, in that 1988 draft, I love that draft. I mean, you got guys like Benny Blades, Chris Spielman, William White, and Eric Andelsek. I mean, those are some solid players. Yeah, right.
Well, look, we had Jerry Ball the year before that.
I love Jerry Ball. Big number 93.
The governor.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be hit by him.
You got a pretty good guy the year after that too, Barry Sanders. But
thank you, Packers.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much for doing this, man. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it. Check him out, DetroitLions.com. Mike O'Hara, longtime Lions beat writer. We're going to take a break.